Let's actually get into building content. I know a blank screen is a lot to look at. I was thinking today we'd build an announcement bar for announcing a newsletter for something that people should sign up for. So I'm going to start by dragging a card, or actually, because I don't want to interrupt people's workflow too much, I'm going to drag a dismissal card onto the page, which means that people can either click into it or they can click out of it using this little X to get it off their page. And the nice thing about Candu is that the way it's installed, if someone X'd out of this announcement bar, your page would just pull up to replace that as if the Candu content was never there. So it won't leave like a weird blank space on your UI. So this is a good time to talk a little bit more about what options are on the toolbar. If I ultimately decided I wanted this card to be static and stay for all of my users forever, I could turn off the dismissible option. I can also do a lot with layouting, which looks a little bit intimidating at first, but is actually really intuitive once you get used to it. This one will actually be really important to us today. So the idea of content direction is, if you think about adding something to a Google Doc, that's always going to add top to bottom. When you add the next piece of text, it's going to add to the new line. But when you think about adding something, let's say to a slide deck, often you'll want to add things side by side. And that's when you get into the row layout, which is actually what we'll use today. So let's set this to row. We have a question. Can you decide who sees the announcement? Say if you want to target to a specific subset of users. Yes, you can do that. So you can use user segments to determine who sees what content. So you could say, I only want new users to see this announcement, or I only want to see users who have not signed up for my newsletter to see this announcement. And to do that, you just need to send that data to Candu, and then you could use user segments to publish to like X group of users and not to Y group of users. So you can actually really reduce the noise that you create in your application. That's a great question. So we have this set up to row, so everything's going to add left to right instead of top to bottom. And we can actually play around with that now. So I want to drag an image over here in media. There's a couple of different ways that you can upload images. You can use the link feature. So you could link, like if you had something from Google Images you wanted to put in here, you could do that here. You can also upload by like dragging an image onto the screen. And finally, we keep a stored media library. So I've already added this image in that I want to use. I've also linked to an image library in case you don't have an image off the top of your head you want to use. So in the chat, there should be a link to a Google Drive photo if you want to download a couple images just for testing purposes. So if I select this image I've already imported, it's huge. This is much too big for what I'm looking for. It's set to 100% width of the page right now. So I can actually select between pixels and percentages. So if I change that to 100 pixels, now it's a little too small. I don't have great rules on pixel sizes. It's best to know what size of screen you're trying to insert this content into to make those decisions. But just based on how it looks, you can use these little arrow keys to try and get to a place that you like. I like 250 for today. Now, I want my announcement to have my image on the far left and then have the content, the text coming out to the right. So right now the image is centered, which is not how I want it. So I'm going to change my content alignment at the card level to be left aligned. And here's one other fun tip that I actually think is really valuable with Candu, which is that once you're clicked into a component on the editor, you can use your arrow keys to navigate around. So once you have a lot of components on the page, it's going to be really helpful. So the next thing I want to do is add a heading. And you can note the style guide updates I made. This heading now has a new font that I added. So all the style guide updates you make will come through directly into the editor. So let's say you can click into the font and newsletter. And the nice thing is I can have someone who is better at copy come in and fix this up for me later. Okay, so under that, I want to get people a little more excited about what we're doing. Actually have some text. I'm going to copy over here and just paste it in. You can put whatever you want in here, obviously. And so this is a pretty good announcement bar. One thing we could do if we wanted just the whole card itself to be clickable is we could come over here, and this little modal allows you to add a URL, so we could have it link out. This probably isn't relevant for this announcement bar, but we could also have it open a mail client. So you can email support or marketing ad or a specific person. And we also have the option to launch a guide product. So some of our users didn't want guide products launching automatically and interrupting their users' flow. They wanted to give their users a little bit more ownership of their experience. And so this is a really nice way to do that. But today we'd probably put in a URL to sign people or to send people to a sign up page or to sign people up automatically. I actually think in this case, it's probably nicer to have a button to link people out so they know exactly what to click on. So if we add a button, because we set the alignment of the whole card to row, if we try to add a button below the text, it's going to add all the way over here to the right, which I don't think is a very good look. So the solution to that is actually, surprisingly, to add a layout to the page, which will come here. But if you hit Shift, you can do multi-select. So we'll just drag the text into this layout, and then using our arrow keys, we'll note that the layout has been set to column instead of to row. So the content will now add top to bottom. So instead of the button we had, delete that guy, it's way out there, we can add a button down here. And you can click into the text. So for instance, if I want to call this a subscribe button, you can click in, subscribe, I can type, and then you can add your link here. And that makes it a little bit more visible to the clients that this is what they should be clicking on. And then we probably want to set this to wrap. It's overflowing a little bit from the card. So we probably want to set that to wrap too. And yeah, as you can see, pretty easy to switch things around. Sometimes we break things and then we can just fix them. There's a lot of different ways to undo content. You can hit the undo button up here. We also, in settings, have an awesome history tracking feature. So you can always go back and change the content so that it looks exactly the way you want it to. You should really think of nothing in the editor gets published to your clients until you hit this publish button. So you can really think of it as a playground for creating UI and updating it honestly as regularly as you want. Once Candu is installed on your page, all of that UI is totally in your control. You don't need a developer to keep making any updates for you. You can keep pushing out new content. And I ended exactly at 1:25, which was what I was hoping for. That gives us 5 minutes for Q&A. Have I missed any questions? Jonathan asked, how does it embed on the page? That's such a good question. So there's actually a number of different ways to install Candu. You can do something as simple as Google Tag Manager if you don't want to get a developer involved at all. You just need to figure out where on the page you want to install it. And we have some really great documentation on this if this is something you're interested in. You can also have a developer use a really simple CDN installation, which should take them maybe 10 minutes. It's really mostly just a matter of figuring out where you want it to live, which actually reminds me, I missed the most important part of this demo, which is our Chrome extension, which hopefully you downloaded from the link I sent you. It'll look like this when you pull it up, and just make sure that when you click on your Chrome extensions, you have it pinned to your nav bar. So let's actually take a chance. This is not a great example. You would never, unless you work at the New York Times, you wouldn't be installing it on the New York Times, but let's just take a look at what it looks like to plug in Candu. So if we open this Chrome extension, there's a couple of options. So if you haven't built content yet and you're not quite sure and you just want to play around with different areas of your site, you can use our pre-built templates and preview what those would look like in app. But today, since we did build this demo announcement, we can open it up and you'll see this red dotted line means that I can't insert it here, but here we go. I got the yellow dotted line, which means I'm good to go, and it's taking a second to load, but there we go. It's pulling all the styles that we set up in the style guide. This is probably not quite matching the New York Times, but if you're logged in experience of your application, you can really just use this preview to preview how the content that you're building looks before you do that installation process. So you can feel really comfortable that it will look the way you want it to when you're done. Alex asks, how complex can the logic behind the button be? For instance, can I make a button click, change the page to a dark mode, or shoot off an analytics event before linking to our URL? That's a great question. Right now, mainly the buttons are linking to separate URLs or sending those email guides, but sending those emails or linking to guides. We have heard a couple of requests about connecting JavaScript events to the buttons. So that's something that we're considering. But for right now, if you wanted to change it to dark mode, you would need to do our URL change for that to happen. That's a great question. Well, I think that covers most of what I wanted to get through today. Hopefully that gives you a sense of getting into the editor and building out your own content. We're all here to help building content and publishing content. So if this session was interesting to you, we'll send out the video again if you want to rewatch it, but also please reach out to me. My email is georgia@candu.ai. I'm always happy to help with a content building workshop and helping you get content live. So that's something I get really excited about, and I'd love to help any of you. Awesome. Well, I think we're at the bottom of the hour. It's 1:30 here. Thank you so much for attending and joining us. Hopefully this was helpful as an overview of Candu. And please feel free to email me any follow-up questions or set up a time to talk more. Thank you all so much.